I woke up in the morning and I said, no, fuck it. I don't want to walk around in a suit. So I started working for Ministry of Sound. I got into music through my family, I guess, because my mother is like the artist in our family, or was the artist. She's dead now. And she used to play the guitar, and there were always like, records playing at home. My father loved jazz music. And we are like 3 children, and they demanded from all of their kids that we have to learn an instrument. Yeah. So I always wanted to learn to drum, but I wasn't allowed to learn the drums because they were too loud because of the neighbors. So I had to learn the guitar. First of all, I had to learn the flute and then the guitar. I hated the flute, but I kind of liked the guitar. And then because I could change it into, like a very loud thing as well, when I changed it into an electronic guitar. But then, at one day I saw, actually, I think some videos from Run DMC DJing and stuff, and breakdance was a big thing, and that was like sometimes in the 80s, and then I wanted to be like them, and I borrowed some turntables from a friend and started to DJ, and then, that was actually all I needed to have, that was even better than drumming. So I just started DJing at home, at my home place, and every night till 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had big fights with my father because he always had to stand up at 5 in the morning and he couldn't sleep. But yeah, that's how it started, I guess. It's my family's influence. And my father's side is more like how do you say that? Rational guy. He's like an engineer. And so he kind of always inspired me to look into doing business as well. And so I was always interested in music and in economics. So if you look at my place at home, at my father's place still, it's like full of records and books about economics. So I'm this crazy mixture, and kind of, yeah. I had to struggle with it for some times because I had to make a decision, where do I want to go? And I became a DJ quite early. It was like I had my first gigs where I got money for was like 16 or 17 when I was like at this age. And but I also was quite good at school. I had some really good marks. I don't actually know why, but so when I left school, I had to make a decision: do I become a DJ or do I want to study? And I got a job in a record store, which was great. So I could, get the music I wanted to have for more or less for free, because I couldn't afford all the records I wanted to have. And that's where I kind of started. I still worked kind of, and took care of the shop, but also listened to music. And then at one point I decided to study and to leave Germany, and I went to England to study finance and law because I made some big mistakes business-wise, and I was too young to really have all the knowledge you needed to have. I was running a store in New York at that time. And little things needed time, like 2 or 3 weeks for me sometimes, yeah, because I just had no clue. And you didn't have internet or something where you just could Google something. We still were like sending faxes to, when I was ordering records in New York, I was sending faxes at 5 o'clock in the morning to our guys in Frankfurt, So it was very complicated. You had to ship records, and you had to know about, exchange rates and, import taxes and all that stuff. And at one point I felt like I need to learn more about this because I don't want to pay lawyers. I couldn't afford lawyers, so I had to do it myself. So that's where I put down records and started studying finance and law. But I needed money, so I started DJing again to pay my studies, yeah. And so I always kind of did it, and then finished the studies, and I got an offer at German bank, Deutsche Bank, and which was well paid and everything. But I woke up in the morning and I said, no, fuck it. I don't want to walk around in a suit. And so I started working for Ministry of Sound, yeah. And they just started their branch in Berlin. At this time, I just came from England. So I was completely in this British mood, and I had some contacts there, and they just hired me straight away. And I just started, and I just wanted to work there. I didn't really think about what to do. So the boss said, hey, you are the product manager now. I actually wanted to be an A&R because it always sounded so cool to be an A&R. But he put me in this product manager position. So here I was again. I had to think about numbers, making plans, marketing plans and stuff like that. And yeah, I was lucky. I had a good mentor. like a senior marketing guy who like was really hard, but who also taught me a lot. So that's you know, the whole story of my life again, you know, working with music, but also having to take care of numbers and shit. Now being a little bit older and looking back at it, I think I learned a lot from my mentor, and I wasn't really aware of what I was learning at the time. And sometimes I really felt like under a lot of pressure, because he was calling me up in the night and at the weekends and giving me like orders and was like really demanding. But you know, looking at it now, is like, I think that was very helpful, because he, the person who mentored me, you know, helped me to get into that state of mind of not being you know, arrogant and not thinking you know everything already, but of, you know, like really trying to work hard for the success every day of your artists. Yeah, and because when you leave school or when you leave university, and then you think, yeah, I know everything, I'm on top of the world now, and then actually it's nonsense, you know. I mean, it's good to know and have knowledge, but then it's about how you use it and how you develop yourself, and you know, and you can't really know everything when you're young. So if you have the chance to learn from somebody who's like older in the game, and then that's always a great chance, yeah, and thing. And now I'm in this position when I have, you know, younger people starting to work for us, and it's a challenge, because on the one hand you don't want to, you know, influence them, but you know, it's good to have young people in the team, because they bring new knowledge, new musical taste and everything, and then you have to kind of step back and, you know, let them grow. On the other hand, you know, it's a big task to give them a direction, and if it works out right, then it's beautiful to see how they develop as well. Yeah. Oh. I don't think there is an equivalent to a good day in a record store. No, because where do you really have this? Where you can, you know, I don't really know. Because the good thing about the record store was like you were listening to music all day long, you know. You had like 8 hours, 10 hours music non-stop, and you were like surrounded by like-minded people, and you were like kind of working within the music, and you had like loudspeakers, and it was just vinyl only or some CDs. So the way we were consuming music was very different to how we consume music now. Nowadays, when you play music to people in the studio or at home or wherever, they tend to have their mobile phones in their hands. Yeah, everybody has that. Or in the office, usually people work with the laptop on their knees, and they think they can multitask, but the thing is, they don't really listen to the songs anymore, and they get distracted very, very, very quickly and easily. So I kind of don't like that. I freak out, you know, when I want to play a new tune to my team, and then the people start looking into their emails, and okay, it's a sign that maybe the record is not good enough because it doesn't catch the attention. On the other hand, this kind of behavior nowadays is different, because people, you know, are distracted so easily. So I think they are not like inside of the music as much as we used to be in that record store. Yeah, and that was like, and the other thing was like, you only had a couple of records, you know, coming in every week. You know, we were like buying them from big distributors, and sometimes there was only like one copy of a great record, and everybody wanted to have this fucking record. So you really had to fight for it as well, you know. And there were like certain positions, like our standard customer was Sven Feth, and then there was DJ Duck and Mark Spoon and DJ T, and they all had their little cases for their records. And we kind of knew what kind of taste they had, so we, you know, pre-selected records, put them into their little cases. And you know, Mark Spoon, for instance, he always tried to steal the records from Sven Feth, and there was like this competition, and there was like a hierarchy, you know, of you know, who gets which record first and stuff like that. And this is all gone, because, you know, now everything is digital and everything is available, and there is so much, you know, there's a huge amount of music out there, which isn't bad, but it's just very different. The Booker Shade guys, who were founders of the label as well, they wanted to be artists only. DJ T wanted to be an artist only, so there was a split in the shareholders. And Philip was there alone, more or less, with the label, and it was in deep red numbers. And but he still didn't want to give it up because he loves it so much still. And then he asked me, called me, if I can help him a little bit. And I was actually running an advertising agency, concentrating on music, like a brand music agency, mainly to make my money at this time. But then I said, yeah, why not? I help you a little bit. And I brought my wife. She's specialized in accounting and royalty controlling, stuff like that. And we looked at it, and I started to try to help a little bit. And I kind of enjoyed it. And then I ended up working for it every day. And I didn't like my other business anymore. So at one day I said, fuck it, I go fully into it. So yeah. I don't know. I think for me the most important thing is to have a good partner. Yeah, first of all. And because I'm quite good at some things, but I'm not good at everything. And my partner Philip, he's very good when it comes to really finding out what kind of music or what kind of producer or DJ or DJing will be big in 2 or 3 years. He really has that feeling, and he knows how to communicate with these kind of people, and they love him, and he knows everybody. And I'm better in organizing a team, organizing the whole setup of releasing music, and I'm very good with distributors and timings and these things, and I'm quite good with numbers. So it's like you can be a very good soccer player maybe, but although you are a sportsman, you can't be a very good volleyball player at the same time. So you really need to have somebody who helps you and who you can always talk to and fight with as well. I think that's very important. And then if you have that basis, then everything else is a question of, how well you organize yourself, of course. And maybe it doesn't really sound interesting, but it's about controlling your cash flow, first of all. It's super important. And controlling, your expenses and your spendings. And then, it's at the end of the day, it's a business. So, you really have to be a good business person and have to control the whole thing as well. There are many mistakes you can do when you start a label. The main question is, why do you want to do the label? Yeah, and what is your individual target? If you just want to do it for fun, and if you have some money to spend, there's actually nothing which you can, which can go wrong, because if you do it for fun, the money is gone. You had fun at least. If you want to make it to do a career for you as a producer or a DJ and to get promotion out of it, you have to see it from that perspective, that it is an investment into your career. And maybe you don't make money from running the label, but you still get promotional results through releasing your music and getting attention for that. And then maybe you cash in money as a performer. Yeah, if you want to run a label to release music, as I do, and to pay a team from it and to pay your artists, then you have to set it up like a real business, and have to be very strict with your spendings, and then really control the cash flow. That sounds stupid, but the cash flow is the most important thing, because usually when you release music, you use a distribution partner who brings the music to all the platforms like Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, Beatport, and so on. And they pay you on a 3 monthly basis sometimes. Yeah. So what do you do in the 2 months where you don't get money? Yeah. You have to save your money for your monthly spendings. If you have a team, you want to pay them on a monthly basis, right? If you have an artwork guy, you have to pay the artwork guy, and so on. So you get your money. Maybe you release music here, and you get your money there. But what happens in the meantime? That's what you have to structure, and that's the most important thing. And then otherwise you're fucked. Yeah. But if you organize that, and if you really know when to expect what kind of payments. And then you can start your release plan depending on that cash flow. And ideally, my dream is that I would like to release a record every day. I want to be like a radio station. Yeah, and I think that's where the whole business is going to. But until then, you still have to take care of different wishes. The artist wants to have the record out at a certain time because it fits in to his career on the DJ level or whatever. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there are many, many more layers. But the cash flow is the most important thing. How do we define our own sound? We don't really define our sound. That's something, other people do, like journalists like to do that, or I don't know. People need kind of a way to put it to sell it, especially in a shop or in a download store. You need to have some kind of way to operate, so that's where the genres are coming from, I guess. But we don't really do that, and we don't like to do that. What we like to do is to release music which we really love, and that can be very diverse. And yes, we have a structure how we decide what we put out and what not. Sometimes we do put out or have put out records to make quick money. That's like the brutal truth. We still like them, but if you hear them later, you're like, well, it's still good, but maybe I wouldn't release that again. That kind of music from that kind of genre, maybe. Let's say, I don't know, a tech house record is not what I really want to hear at the moment as a private person. But I think what is interesting with labels in our electronic music world is they come, they start, and if everything is running well, and if they have a nice team around and good artists and live events where they can promote the sound they like, they get to a certain kind of peak. And if they're successful, they get like super hyped. You can see that all the time. And then after this hype, or to explain the hype is like, at the moment, people are really sometimes saying this is the XYZ sound, and they put that sound to a label name. Like we had this Get Physical sound in 2005, or I mean, I don't want to mention other brands, but people define sounds by labels for some time, but then something else becomes the new hot thing, and so what happens then? And for us, it was like always important not to think about what anybody else is actually thinking about us. We don't want to be put into that box, and we don't want to satisfy somebody. We just want to put out the music we really like. So when you're behind that hype phase, and when you made that next step, and when you think, well, I'm my own boss, I have my own label platform, I can reach people, I know how to do it, then you can decide, do I want to stick to something people expect, or just move on and do what I like? And that's where we are now. Yeah, and we had this big hype, obviously, when we were like label of the year with like a Mixmag cover and like best-selling record label at Beatport in 2005, and now we just don't care anymore, and we kind of like that. And it's like 15 years now, and we have a team. We can pay their fees, and we can pay their monthly salaries, and we make a good living from it, and we can travel, and we can speak to interesting people like you, and that's more important for us than just a genre or sound definition. Yeah. I think the times have never been better to run a label. Yeah, it's certainly, of course, there is some nostalgia around vinyl, and I love vinyl. I still have like, I don't know, 15,000 records at least. Yeah, and I understand that, and the appreciation of the sound and everything. Of course, I do, but from a business perspective, it's much more better to have digital files and streaming. We have less costs. You don't have to produce something and put it on a shelf and wait until somebody buys it. Usually, you ship like 100, but they return 150. These times are over, and you can experiment. You can put something out and just see what happens. If I want to release a record, I can release it tomorrow. It's no problem, which is amazing. Yeah, and then, the biggest, actually our biggest clients aren't like DJs. Our biggest clients are companies like Google, Apple Music, big telecom providers, because they all need our content. And they're like super cash-rich companies. I mean, even Spotify, although they are still making operative losses at the moment, they are like backed up by the big major companies. And if there's a strong cash power behind these brands, and actually that's great for us. If you have the right content and your costs are very low, you can put it out and see what happens, right? And the income from streaming is growing exponentially. So, I mean, although we don't really have the kind of music which is super popular at streaming platforms, it's still making money. And sometimes when you're just lucky, somebody puts it into a big playlist, all of a sudden people learn to know your song, and then they start playing at the radio again and all these things. And it's happening more or less on a global level. Of course, there are still countries where you don't really earn a lot of money with streaming, but they are coming. And so I think the times are very, very good for working with music, and I think they're getting better. It is, I think, the highest art form in our business, because if you're like a really good A&R manager, you have a very, very good network, good contacts, and the people like you. And they pick up the phone when you call them or they answer your questions. And then you also really should know how the business works. You should be able to explain what a contract actually means. What does it mean when we pay you X amount of royalties, but the mechanicals are deductible or things like that? You should be able to explain that to a young kid when he wants to sign with a record label. So you should know everything and should be a very good, personality in explaining things as well, I guess. Then you should listen to what you really like and don't listen to, other people. If you really love something, you should fight for it. I think the best records I released, be it as an A&R manager or as a product manager, were always these records where you felt something for, or the bands you loved. I think that still makes a big difference to selling, chairs, or although you can love selling chairs as well. Let's say toothpaste or something like that. If you really love something and if you have the emotion for it, you can kind of transport that energy for a record which you love into a team. And then, if you inspire these people, they start working for you and they love it as well. There's this positive energy. So I think you should be good in feeling something, fighting for it, and then giving it to other people. I just do what I love. Yeah, that's it. And that was not always like that, because I tried to be, maybe a lot of different things before I really realized that releasing music and being the guy behind the success of other people is exactly what I can do very good, where I'm very good at. I'm a DJ myself, but I'm not like the superstar DJ kind of guy, and I don't have what it takes to become super crazy. And I don't really like that, because I like to be sober at the weekend and be with my family. But I kind of like that and I understand it. And I love music, and I love releasing music, and I love leading a team releasing music, and I love seeing the results of, if you know what you're doing, and then you're doing a timing for the release of a product, and you think in long-term plans, and 2.5 years later you see it happening on a stage, and you see it in the internet, in the blogs and wherever, and you see the streaming rate numbers increasing of the artists you work with and you love, then that's something which just makes me super happy. And that's why I'm quite, in a good balance now. I don't know, I'm not good at advising things if I don't know you, and still then I try to shut up because I think everybody ideally makes his own experience. But I think you should really do what you love. I think that was my key decision in my life so far, when I really realized I should focus on what I really like the most, and follow my passion. Yeah, and then, we are in this kind of industry where we can be very happy that you can combine your passion with business, And you should, if you really like are up for it, follow your heart instead of becoming a banker or whatever.